Welcome to another gripping episode of our deep dive into the dark underworld of America's most notorious gang leaders and members. Today, we uncover the chilling stories of dangerous individuals who rose to power within their gangs, only to meet their ultimate fate behind bars. These tales of crime, power, and inevitable downfall serve as a stark reminder of the perilous path of gang life. Join us as we delve into the lives, crimes, and final moments of these infamous figures. This is The End of the Line, gang leaders and members who met their maker in the U.S. prison system. Number 7. Ulloa Lalo Martinez of the Mexican Mafia. Ulloa Lalo Martinez was a key figure in the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M. Born and raised in the crime-ridden neighborhoods of Southern California, Martinez was drawn to gang life from an early age. His introduction to the Mexican Mafia came during a stint in prison, where he quickly rose through the ranks due to his ruthlessness and strategic mind. As Martinez climbed the hierarchy, he became known for his role as an enforcer and strategist. His position within La M involved coordinating various criminal enterprises, from drug trafficking to violent enforcement activities. Martinez's reputation for brutality was solidified through several high-profile incidents that demonstrated his willingness to use extreme violence to maintain control and instill fear. One such incident occurred in the late 1990s, when Martinez orchestrated a series of attacks on rival gang members who were encroaching on La M's territory. These coordinated assaults resulted in multiple deaths and sent a clear message to other gangs about the consequences of challenging the Mexican Mafia's authority. Martinez's actions were not just about maintaining power, but also about reinforcing the gang's brutal reputation. Another notorious episode involved the homicide of a fellow gang member who was suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. Martinez personally ensured that the execution was carried out in a gruesome manner, leaving no doubt about the fate of those who betrayed La M. This act of violence further cemented his status as a dangerous and influential leader within the gang. Martinez's criminal activities eventually drew the attention of law enforcement agencies. After years of surveillance and intelligence gathering, a major operation was launched to dismantle La M's leadership. On January 15, 2005, Martinez was arrested in a coordinated raid that targeted key members of the Mexican Mafia, and Martinez was indicted on multiple charges, including racketeering, countless crimes, and assassination. The trial revealed the extent of his involvement in the gang's operations and his role in numerous violent crimes. Martinez was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a verdict that marked the end of his reign of terror. Martinez was incarcerated at the United States Penitentiary, Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX, in Florence, Colorado. Despite the high security measures, Martinez continued to wield influence from behind bars, communicating with other gang members and orchestrating criminal activities. But in an unexpected twist, Ulloa Lalo Martinez's life came to a violent end in prison. On March 10, 2010, he was found dead in his cell, the victim of a brutal attack by fellow inmates. Number 6. Thomas Silverstein of the Aryan Brotherhood Gang. Thomas Silverstein, often considered one of the most dangerous inmates in the U.S. federal prison system, was a prominent figure in the Aryan Brotherhood, AB gang. His life story is one marked by violence, control, and an enduring reputation as a feared leader within the prison gang hierarchy. Born on February 4, 1952, Silverstein's early life was troubled. His criminal activities began at a young age, and he was first imprisoned in 1971 for armed robbery. During his time in prison, Silverstein's violent tendencies and strategic mind quickly set him apart. By the mid-1970s, he had become affiliated with the Aryan Brotherhood. Silverstein's rise within the Aryan Brotherhood was fueled by his willingness to commit acts of extreme violence to maintain the gang's power and influence. One of the most infamous incidents that cemented his reputation occurred in 1980, While incarcerated at USP Marion, Silverstein and another AB member, Clayton Fountain, assassinated fellow inmate Danny Atwell, who had refused to become a substance mule for the gang. This act of violence was a clear demonstration of the ruthless enforcement tactics employed by the Aryan Brotherhood to control the prison's narcotics trade. Another notorious incident took place in 1983 when Silverstein, already serving a life sentence, assassinated correctional officer Merle Klutz at USP Marion. This act was particularly significant because it marked one of the few times in U.S. history that an inmate successfully executed a federal correctional officer. The slaughter was a calculated act of revenge. Klutz had reportedly been harassing Silverstein, and the inmate saw this as an opportunity to strike back. Silverstein stabbed Klutz multiple times with a shank, further solidifying his feared status within the prison system. The slaying of Officer Klutz had far-reaching consequences. It led to significant changes in the U.S. Bureau of Prisons policies regarding the handling of high-risk inmates. Following the incident, Silverstein was placed in a no-human contact status, spending the next 36 years in solitary confinement, one of the longest durations of such confinement in American history. Silverstein's criminal activities and the threat he posed did not go unnoticed by law enforcement. He was sentenced to life imprisonment again for the manslaughter of inmate Danny Atwell. His subsequent actions, including the slaying of Officer Klutz, resulted in additional life sentences. Throughout his time in prison, Silverstein remained a prominent and influential figure within the Aryan Brotherhood, continuing to orchestrate gang activities from his cell. On May 11, 2019, Thomas Silverstein died at St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood, Colorado, while still serving his jail time. He had been transferred there from ADX Florence, the federal supermax prison where he had been held. Number 5. Adolfo Champ Reynoso of the Mexican Mafia. Adolfo Champ Reynoso was a notorious member of the Mexican Mafia. His life was a dark tapestry woven with violence, power, and an unyielding quest for dominance in the criminal underworld. Reynoso's journey into the abyss of organized crime began in the rough neighborhoods of East Los Angeles, where he was born and raised. From a young age, Reynoso was exposed to the harsh realities of gang life. The allure of power and respect that came with gang membership was irresistible to him. He joined the East LA street gang Big Hazard, where he quickly made a name for himself through his ruthlessness and strategic thinking. His rise within the gang was swift, and it wasn't long before he caught the attention of the higher-ups in the Mexican Mafia. Reynoso's intelligence and brutality made him a perfect fit for La M, and he was soon initiated into their ranks. Reynoso's position within the Mexican Mafia was one of significant power. As a high-ranking member, he was involved in overseeing the gang's criminal operations, including substance trafficking and violent enforcement activities. His role was not just that of an enforcer, but also a strategist, someone who planned and executed the gang's most crucial operations. One particularly chilling example of Reynoso's dangerous nature was his involvement in orchestrating a brutal hit within the prison system. In a display of his power and influence, Reynoso ordered the assassination of a rival gang member who had dared to challenge La M's authority. The hit was carried out with precision, sending a clear message to anyone who might consider crossing the Mexican Mafia. Another notorious incident that showcased Reynoso's ruthlessness occurred in the streets of East LA. A rival gang had begun encroaching on Miami's drug territory, threatening their control over the lucrative trade. Reynoso, tasked with eliminating the threat, orchestrated a series of coordinated attacks on the rival gang's strongholds. The assault was swift and merciless, leaving no survivors. This operation not only solidified Reynoso's reputation within La M, but also sent a clear message to other gangs. Challenging the Mexican Mafia would be met with deadly force. Reynoso's criminal activities eventually drew the attention of law enforcement. After years of surveillance and intelligence gathering, authorities launched an extensive operation to dismantle the Mexican Mafia's network. Reynoso was a primary target. The evidence against him was overwhelming, including intercepted communications, financial records, and witnesses from former gang members who had turned informants. In 1995, Reynoso was one of the 22 members indicted in the first federal RICO case against the Mexican Mafia. This case was a landmark in the fight against organized crime, revealing the Mafia's extensive scheme of using street gang members to tax coca dealers and funneling significant revenue to its incarcerated leaders and associates. Reynoso was arrested and charged with numerous crimes, including substance trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Reynoso's trial was a major event, drawing significant media attention. The courtroom was packed as prosecutors laid out the case against him, detailing his involvement in countless violent crimes and his role in maintaining LAM's grip on the drug trade. Despite his attempts to intimidate witnesses and obstruct justice, the evidence against him was irrefutable. In 1996, Reynoso was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He was sent to the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX, in Florence, Colorado. It was there that Reynoso spent the remaining years of his life and eventually died while still serving his prison times. Number 4. Peter Sana Oeda of the Mexican Mafia. Peter Sana Oeda, a name that reverberated through the annals of the Mexican Mafia, or LAM, was a figure whose life was marked by violence, power, and an unyielding grip on the gang's operations. Born in 1940, Oeda's journey into the heart of the Mexican Mafia began in the turbulent streets of Southern California. Oeda's ascent through the ranks was fueled by his strategic mind and an ability to command respect through fear. By the late 1970s, he had established himself as a formidable enforcer, known for his ruthlessness and his unwavering loyalty to LAM. His position in the gang was that of a high-ranking leader, or colonel, a role that involved overseeing the gang's extensive criminal enterprises, both inside and outside prison walls. One particularly chilling incident that underscored Oeda's dangerous nature occurred in the mid-1990s. He orchestrated a brutal crackdown on rival gang members who had dared to defy the Mexican Mafia's authority. Under Oeda's orders, a series of coordinated attacks were launched within the California prison system, resulting in multiple deaths and a clear message that betrayal would not be tolerated. This ruthless enforcement of discipline solidified his status as a feared and respected leader within LAM. Another episode that highlighted Oeda's reach and influence was the infamous Green Light Directive. In the early 2000s, Oeda authorized a campaign of violence against non-compliant Hispanic gangs and individuals who refused to pay tribute or adhere to the Mexican Mafia's rules. This directive led to numerous assaults and murders, further entrenching the Mexican Mafia's control over the Hispanic criminal underworld in Southern California. Despite his cunning and ability to elude law enforcement for decades, Oeda's reign of terror came to an end. After years of surveillance and intelligence gathering, federal authorities arrested him in Orange County, California. The charges against him were extensive, including racketeering, conspiracy to commit homicide, and substance trafficking. His arrest marked a significant victory for law enforcement in their ongoing battle against organized crime. In 2013, Peter Sana Oeda was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. He was incarcerated at the Terminal Island Federal Correctional Institution in San Pedro, California. Despite his imprisonment, Oeda's influence within the Mexican Mafia continued to be felt as he remained a central figure in the gang's operations from behind bars. On June 7, 2018, Peter Sana Oeda passed away while still serving his sentence. Number 3. Stanley Tukie Williams of the Crips Gang. Stanley Tukie Williams was a co-founder of the Crips, one of the most notorious street gangs in the United States. The Crips were established in Los Angeles, California in 1969 by Raymond Washington and Williams. The gang was originally created to protect their neighborhood from other gangs, but it quickly turned into a violent organization involved in narcotics trafficking, robbery, and massacres. The Crips, recognizable by their blue attire, expanded their influence across the country, becoming one of the largest and most feared gangs in America. Williams' leadership style was marked by his willingness to use violence to achieve his goals. One notable event that highlighted his dangerous nature occurred in 1974. In a confrontation with a rival gang, Williams and his fellow Crips members opened fire, resulting in several injuries and the death of a rival gang member. This act of violence solidified Williams's reputation as a ruthless leader who would stop at nothing to maintain control and expand his gang's territory. Another instance of Williams's lethal authority was the 1979 robbery and homicide of Albert Owens, a 26-year-old convenience store worker. Williams, along with 3 other Crips members, planned the robbery to fund their gang activities. During the robbery, Williams shot and executed Owens, leaving no witnesses. This brutal act demonstrated Williams's cold-blooded approach to eliminating anyone who stood in his way. Law enforcement had been monitoring Williams and the Crips for years. The police conducted extensive investigations and eventually gathered enough evidence to charge Williams with multiple crimes. On March 15, 1979, Williams was arrested and charged with 4 counts of massacre, 2 for the homicides of a family during a robbery, and 2 for the homicide of Albert Owens. The trial drew significant attention, with numerous witnesses testifying against Williams. The evidence presented was overwhelming. On April 20, 1981, Williams was found guilty on all counts of slaughter and sentenced to death. He was sent to San Quentin State Prison in California to await execution. While in prison, Williams' life took an unexpected turn. He began to rethink his past actions and sought redemption. Williams started writing children's books aimed at deterring youth from joining gangs. He also spoke out against gang violence and worked to promote peace. Despite these efforts, his appeals for clemency were denied. Williams' health began to deteriorate while he was in prison. He continued to fight for his life through legal appeals, but all were ultimately unsuccessful. On December 13, 2005, Stanley "Tukie" Williams was executed by lethal injection at San Quentin State Prison. Number 2. Benjamin "Toppo" Peters of the Mexican Mafia, La M Gang. Benjamin Toppo. Peters was a high-ranking member of the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M. The Mexican Mafia is one of the most powerful and notorious prison gangs in the United States. It was founded in the late 1950s at the Dual Vocational Institution in Tracy, California. Originally formed for protection against other prison gangs, La M quickly expanded its activities to include substance trafficking, extortion, and contract execution. Peters, known by his nickname Toppo, which means mole in Spanish, was an influential and dangerous leader within the Mexican Mafia. His ability to orchestrate violence and control gang activities from within prison walls made him a formidable figure. One notable incident that highlighted his dangerous leadership was his involvement in the massacre of a fellow gang member who was suspected of being a police informant. This brutal act demonstrated Peters' ruthlessness and his determination to maintain control and enforce the gang's strict code of loyalty and silence. Another significant event that showcased Peters' lethal influence was his role in a large-scale coca trafficking operation. Under his leadership, La M coordinated the smuggling and distribution of narcotics both inside and outside prison. Peters' strategic planning and connections enabled the gang to establish a profitable narcotics trade, further solidifying its power and influence. Law enforcement had been targeting Peters and other high-ranking members of the Mexican Mafia for years. Their efforts finally paid off in the late 1990s, when they gathered enough evidence to indict Peters on multiple charges, including substance trafficking, racketeering, and slaughter. On March 5, 1997, Peters was arrested and later convicted on these charges. In 1997, Peters was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was incarcerated at the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX, in Florence, Colorado, known for housing some of the most dangerous criminals in the federal prison system. ADX Florence, often referred to as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, is renowned for its strict security measures and solitary confinement conditions. While serving his sentence, Peter's health began to decline. Despite receiving medical care in prison, his condition worsened over time. On October 15, 2001, Benjamin Toppo Peters died of natural causes while still incarcerated at ADX Florence. Number 1. Barry, the Barron Mills of the Aryan Brotherhood Gang. Barry. The Barron Mills was a notorious leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist prison gang. The Aryan Brotherhood was founded in the 1960s at San Quentin State Prison in California. Initially, it was formed for the protection of white inmates, but it quickly evolved into a violent criminal organization. The Aryan Brotherhood, also known as the AB, became one of the most feared and powerful prison gangs in the United States. Mills joined the Aryan Brotherhood in the early 1970s. His ruthlessness, intelligence, and strategic mind helped him rise through the ranks rapidly. By the late 1970s, he had established himself as one of the top leaders of the gang. Mills was known for his ability to orchestrate complex criminal operations from within prison walls and maintain strict control over the gang's activities. One event that showcased Mills's dangerous leadership was the 1983 massacre of a fellow inmate named Curtis Price. Price had fallen out of favor with the Aryan Brotherhood and was suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. Mills, demonstrating his ruthless enforcement of gang rules, ordered Price's assassination. On July 23, 1983, Price was brutally slayed by several AB members inside the prison. This act of violence reinforced Mills' reputation as a leader who would not hesitate to eliminate perceived threats. Another instance highlighting Mills's lethal authority was the orchestrated homicide of 2 African-American inmates in 1997. The assassinations were part of a broader race war instigated by the Aryan Brotherhood to assert their dominance within the prison system. Mills's strategic planning and willingness to incite violence showcased his dangerous influence over the gang and the prison environment. Law enforcement had been monitoring Mills and the Aryan Brotherhood for years. The FBI and other agencies conducted extensive investigations, gathering evidence through wiretaps, informants, and undercover operations. By the early 2000s, they had built a strong case against Mills and other key members of the Aryan Brotherhood. On April 24, 2002, Barry the Barron Mills was indicted on multiple charges, including slaughter, conspiracy to commit assassination, substance trafficking, and racketeering. The trial, which began in 2006, was a major event with numerous witnesses, including former gang members, testifying against Mills. The evidence presented in court was overwhelming, showcasing Mills' direct involvement in orchestrating assassinations and other criminal activities. On July 28, 2006, Mills was found guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, emphasizing the severe impact of his crimes. While serving his sentence at ADX, Mills's health began to deteriorate. He was diagnosed with various ailments, including heart disease and diabetes. Despite receiving medical treatment, his condition continued to worsen over time. On July 8, 2018, Barry the Barron Mills died in prison from complications related to his illnesses.